Welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast. Episode 118 is an interview with Ruth Croft. New Zealand trail running sensation Ruth Croft ran for 17 hours, 33 minutes and 48 seconds to put her on the podium in a stunning miler debut at one of the world's most competitive ultramarathons, Western States. In her first attempt at the 100-mile or 161-kilometre distance, more than 60 kilometres further than she has ever raced, Croft was the second female home and ninth runner overall at the Western States Endurance Run in California. She won the 102-kilometre Tarawera Ultra overall, top men or women, in February. Then she set her sights on Western States. In this episode, we discuss how Tarawera and Western States went, how she trained for each race, and what she is focusing on now. I hope you enjoy our chat, and if you do enjoy this episode, I would really love it if you could do me a favour and go on over to Apple Podcasts to rate, review and subscribe. It really helps the audience grow and the show. I appreciate your feedback and support. Are injuries or niggles ruining your enjoyment of running and hindering your performance? Get on top of these and see the specialists at Health and High Performance. They utilise the latest in technology and have an absolute wealth of experience. And in this way, the team at Health and High Performance can assist you with all your running injury and performance needs. So, if you want to get back to enjoying your running and achieving the results you know that you are capable of, head to healthhp.com.au/run, or you can find them easily on Instagram, Health High Performance. Health and High Performance are located in Mont Albert, Melbourne, but are also available for telehealth appointments not only Australia-wide, but also around the world. Contact them on their website to find out more. Wild Earth Australia are the online store to help you make the most of the beautiful outdoors with top quality gear at great prices. Peak Endurance Podcast listeners can use the discount code Peak Endurance, which is all in capitals, to get 10% off at checkout. Head on over to wildearth.com.au to get everything you need for your next big adventure. If you want to be the best athlete you can be, you deserve the best coaching you can get. Peak Endurance Coaching has the personal touch you won't get anywhere else that will help you achieve your running goals through providing customized plans that reflect your commitments in life and your athletic history. You'll become fitter, faster and stronger whilst becoming part of the Peak Endurance Coaching community. Don't waste a minute of your running journey. Email me, Isabel, at peakendurancecoaching.com.au to get a program designed just for you started. I really hope you enjoy this chat with Ruth. I know I did. Hi, Ruth, and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
No worries. No, just in case there's anyone who doesn't know who you are, which I highly don't, but can you tell the listeners a bit about yourself, but also your athletic and running background and how you got into running and ultra running?
So I'm a born and bred Kiwi. I grew up on the South Island, on the west coast of the South Island, in a small place called Greymouth, a small town. And so growing up, I always did a lot of sports, like I think a lot of Kiwi kids did basketball, tennis, netball, and did cross country and track. And then when I was about 11, I went over to Christchurch to boarding school. And that's when I started getting a bit more serious into running. I got a coach there. And then as a junior, I represented New Zealand at the World Mountain Running Champs, at the World Athletics Champs, and then also at the World Cross Country Champs. And then after graduating high school, I worked in a bar and a restaurant for a couple of years, and then I decided to take up an athletics and cross country scholarship in the US, and I went to University of Portland in Oregon, and was there for 4 years, and my running got worse actually. And then I think it was my fourth year I finally did a PB. And then after that, I moved to Taipei.
Why do you think it got worse? Sorry. Why did it get worse?
It was just a different environment from what I was used to in New Zealand. I think in New Zealand, like my coach did it for the love of it. He didn't get paid. We had a really good relationship. And then in the US, it's very much more business orientated. There were 25 girls on the team. Only the top 7 would get to travel to major events. And so as a freshman, when you first come onto the team, it's kind of like you're working out your pecking order. And I think a lot of the time your easy runs were not easy. They were too, and there was just a lot more intensity sessions than what I was used to, running on the concrete a lot more. So there were a lot of factors, like a lot of athletes do well in that system. But for me, I just didn't.
No, fair enough. Sorry, I just wanted it to.
No,
go on. Sorry, keep going.
And so after that, I moved to Taipei, Taiwan, with just wanting to give up running. I kind of fell out of love with it. And then after 6 months of not running, I realized it's pretty ingrained in me, and just got back into it more for the health side, and then got into trail running and used it as a way to travel. So I went to Japan and did the Mount Fuji ascent, and then to the summit of Mount Fuji. Then went to Nepal and did a race from Everest Base Camp, and went to Malaysia and did Mount Kinabalu climb-a-thon. So it was just kind of a way to see different countries. And then I started getting some results, and then that kind of just, progressed from there pretty much.
Yeah, wow, that is some amazing races you've done in such a short time, really, when you think about it, being everywhere, really. What was it like going to boarding school at the age of 11?
You learn to be pretty independent pretty quickly.
Yeah, I did.
I got a lot more sporting opportunities there. So I don't know if I'd stayed where I grew up, I don't know if I would have gotten into running to the extent I did. But I definitely, I look back at it and I'm very fortunate for that time, but also our family wasn't super close, I don't think, growing up, because we didn't have that time together.
Yeah, I can imagine. But also, do you think that perhaps that independence has really helped you with the running, because it is a solo pursuit mainly?
I think it's helped me in just having being okay about going over to the US and going on a running scholarship, and being okay to move to Taiwan, where I didn't know anyone, I didn't speak the language, and I didn't know the culture. So I think it's helped me have the courage to step outside my comfort zone and go do some other things in life.
Yeah, I bet. But still, it would have been really hard, I can imagine. Now, of course, you recently came second and 9th overall at Western States in a time of 17 hours, 33 minutes and 48 seconds. And so congratulations on that. That is an amazing result.
Yeah, thank you. It was one of those days where everything clicked, and I don't think I could have asked for a better debut 100-miler.
Yeah, because that was your first 100-miler, and normally you go into your first 100-miler thinking, well, we'll just see how it goes. But
I think sometimes it can be a good thing. I think you're a bit more, you have to have a lot more patience, and you're just a bit more cautious and aware that this is your first one, that you can't, I don't think you can race too aggressively. Well, I'm not the sort of person that would do that for my first 100-miler. So I think in some ways, ignorance is bliss going into to your first one.
Yeah. So when you reflect on it, because you've done 100K races before, how does it differ, say, from a 100K race?
There's just so many more. Well, I think Western States in particular, you've got more variables. You've got the heat. It's a net downhill course of 7,000 meters of downhill and 5,000 meters of climbing. And so you've got to be careful of your quads. And for me, the other thing was the nutrition side of it. So it's just, there's a lot more variables that could go wrong compared to 100K. So it's really about making sure that you're staying on top of all of those.
Yeah, no, that's quite true. Now, seeing as it was your first 100-miler and Western States, just to add to the pressure, were you nervous beforehand, or were you taking it quite in your stride?
I was nervous but excited, a little bit scared shitless too, but it's a really good feeling to have. I was telling people, I've been doing the same races for the past 3 years around that 50K to 80K distance. And so it was really good to go into it and be excited and just be a bit curious about that unknown. Definitely. But also I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself, because I kind of drawed on a lot of my training. I knew I'd done everything I could to be on that start line ready.
Yeah, no, that's good. And what made you decide to step up to the 100-mile distance?
Pretty much just what I just touched on, that I was just doing the same distances. I was doing the Golden Trail series, which I'd done the past 3 years. And I was also racing a lot of the same females, and I just don't get super motivated by doing the same events year in and year out. And at the end of last year, I was just feeling a bit stale race-wise. And so I thought it was just time for a change.
Yeah, no, and obviously a good change. So how did your training differ? Like, what did you have to do extra, or was it basically much the same?
So my build up for Western States, I actually did marathon prep. I went over to Aussie and did your marathon trials on, I think it was April 14th, around then.
Okay.
So at the beginning, I found out I got a ticket for Western States in January, but I didn't know if it was going to go ahead or not. So I didn't want to put all my eggs in the Western States basket in case it didn't happen. And so I decided to train for the road marathon until April. And then in the middle of that road build up, I did Tarawera 100. And then, so after the marathon, it didn't go well. I pulled out at 32K.
Oh no.
But it was just, I had done all the training, so that didn't go to waste. I had a couple of weeks, I think a week or so off after that, and got straight back into trail training. Came over to Aussie to do the UTA 50, and then recovered from that. And then I essentially only had 3 weeks, got over to the States, and I had a 3-week block, which isn't a lot when I look back at it. But it was
enough.
It was just at that point, it was about getting time on my feet. I knew I had the speed in my legs, and so it was just getting some long runs in. But my longest run, and I was saying the other day, I don't think it was over 53K. Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, you don't have to do super long runs for a miler. It's the cumulative effect of all the training.
Exactly. And I'd had consistent training since middle of December, so you just have to draw on that.
And I mean, you did Tarawera, so that's like a decent length run too.
Yeah,
and you won that overall, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
That's an amazing achievement as well. So you had that, in your mind as well to look back on to know, as a confidence booster, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it was good to just have a longer race like Tarawera and just to practice nutrition and things like that.
Yeah. Now, with all this traveling for different races, which under normal circumstances would be completely normal, how did you manage that in this COVID world?
Traveling from New Zealand has actually been pretty easy because, it's very different to Australia. I know with Aussie, you have to apply to get granted to leave. With New Zealand, we can leave freely. So it's actually easy. And and flying into the States, because New Zealand is on one of the green lists, we could just enter.
Wow. So from New Zealand, you're allowed to travel. I'd heard that you weren't.
Yeah. No, you're allowed to travel.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I traveled. I left New Zealand for the season last year, end of July as well. So
that's amazing. But what about when you go back? Do you have to quarantine or anything?
Yeah. So we have to do the MIQ 2-week quarantine. I'm fully vaccinated though as well, and it's still the case at the moment. Yeah,
but I mean, it's worth it if you get to travel, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, New Zealand's MIQ, I was checking yesterday. It's all full up until the end of November.
Oh, so you can't go home?
I can't go home at the moment.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, I'm sure there's worse things. I guess you'll just have to.
Yeah.
So who was your crew for the race?
So my partner, Martin, was with me. And then I had Alex Varner out of San Fran, and then a good friend from college, David Thompson. So I had the 3 of them that crewed me and paced me.
Okay. So you had paces as well. So that's good.
Yeah.
Now, you touched on nutrition and how it differs from the 100K. What was your nutrition plan going in, and what did it end up being?
Well, actually, my nutrition plan going in ended up the same as what it was. It worked out well. For the first 5 hours, my plan was to use real food, just because I know from previous experience, I kind of have a limit on gels in that of 10 to 12 hours. Yeah. And I knew at the start of the race, it's cooler. I shouldn't be running too hard. So it's a good time to try and eat real food. And so I was aiming for 60 grams of carbs per hour. And then I was drinking 500 mils of either water or a Nun electrolyte, and trying to get 600 milligrams of sodium. Yeah. And then after the 5 hours, as it was starting to get hotter, I upped it to like 1 liter of fluids, 800 milligrams of sodium, and then kept it on the 60 grams of carbs. But then I went to like liquid carbs. I was using the Goo Roctane Summit Tea. And diluting that over 1 liter, and then I alternate with Morton gels as well.
So did you work with a nutritionist or dietitian on that plan, or is that something you've just come up with, because it's quite detailed?
I did. I talked to a sport nutritionist. Just that for me, the worry was the heat. I just didn't know what I needed to aim for each hour. And so she was telling me how like a liter is the maximum gastric emptying rate. So she was like, oh, you don't need to go over that for the hour, and just, getting that sodium dialed in. But I also think, even though I've done shorter races, I've got my stomach pretty conditioned for gels and all that. Yeah. So it worked out.
So do you normally, when you're in training, do you train trying different foods and gels and all that sort of stuff?
I've changed over the years. I get kind of flavor fatigue, or I just like to try something different. But the Goo Roctane Summit tea is not super sweet, so that's always worked for me. And the Morton gels work. And then I try different real foods. So I had these almond butter kind of protein bars that were working, and then brown rice balls that I was using for my real food. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did the heat affect you? How did you find it?
It actually wasn't too bad. I think it's how you go into it mentally as well, and not trying to fight it. And with Western States, they had 20 aid stations over the 100 miles, and they had accounted for 5 pounds of ice per athlete per aid station.
Oh, really?
Jeez. Yeah. So there's a lot of cooling techniques as well. Yeah. So once it got hot, I was using the ice bandana, ice in the arm sleeves, ice in my pack, ice down my sports bra. And so it's actually I didn't find it to be too bad.
Yeah. Oh, that's all right. Now, also, as you said, it's a net downhill race. Did you do any specific in your training, anything specific to harden your legs up for that?
So I really, in the first weekend that we were in the States, they have the Memorial Weekend run where you can do the last 120K of the course over 3 days. Yeah, so I only did 2 days. So it was like a 50 and a 30K the following day. And I just noticed my quads were so sore after that. But then those next 3 weeks, I was just getting in the mountains, and I didn't do anything specific, but over the course of that time, I was getting plenty of up and down, and they were ready by race day.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Do you have like a high point of the race and a low point of the race you could share with us?
So the high point of the race, what was my high point? I had a good group of girls that I was running with at the beginning. Brittany Peterson, who got second the year before in 2019, and Emily Hallgood and Kelly Hinninger. And it was just good to have that company, because it can be quite lonely, 100 miles. And Brittany, she's raced it obviously before. And so it was good. I felt like the girls ahead of us had gone out pretty hot, and she was saying that. And it was good just to check in with her about it. And then my low point was probably like the last 5 miles. Yeah. I was just struggling at that point I was struggling with getting gels in, and I was just ready for it to be over. My feet were really sore, probably slower on the downhills than I was on the flat. Yeah. So I was getting some tough love from my partner.
That's always very important, but and it's to be expected that last 5 miles was hard, because it's the longest you've ever gone. So
yeah.
I guess that's part of it. So you talked about pacing a bit there, like with saying, the other girls went out really hard. Do you, in longer races, tend to pace yourself, as in doing negative splitting basically, or going out easier and then sort of picking it up? How do you pace yourself?
I feel like I have a pretty good gauge of running, knowing when I'm running too hard and like running in my own limits. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I don't always race super aggressively, but then there has been times where I have as well. It just depends on my mindset, I think, going into the race and how I'm feeling. Yeah.
So is there anything you would change about the race, your strategy and tactics, if you did it again?
I think
if you could do this particular race over again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I could have done, with training, a few more weeks of just getting some longer runs under my belt. And then I think going into it again, I would have a bit more confidence knowing that I could race it a bit more aggressively. And then, so I think that's the main changes I would make.
And so when you knew, like, as you said earlier, it was your first 100 miles, so you weren't necessarily putting a lot of pressure on yourself, but you must have at some point realized that you were going to be, podiuming on the podium. I can't say the word. How did that make you feel? Like, did you start stressing about that? How were you feeling about it all?
Like I know it was my first 100 miler, but I had confidence that I could get on the podium. Like I knew my training had been good, and I knew that if I did everything right, like early on in the race, if I didn't go out too hard, if I kept up on my nutrition, if I kept myself as cool as possible, I felt I could do well in this last 60K. And so I think it was more, like when I realized that I'd come second, it was, as I said at the finish line, it was just such a positive experience. Like I really enjoyed the day out there. I never thought I would say that about 100 miles. And just to have my crew also have like a really good day, that meant a lot as well.
Yeah. And obviously you being second, or, all of the people in the top 10 get to come back again next year. Will you be going back, do you think?
If you had asked me like straight after the race, I was like, definitely not. I've never felt so wrecked after a run before. And I know this has probably taken a massive toll on my body. Yeah. And I also don't think it's healthy to run this long a distance very often. Yeah. But we're now like a week or two removed from it. And I definitely think I would go back. Like Western States, it has a lot of history. It's a great event. Like the whole community gets behind it. And so it was great to be a part of. And yeah, I'm not sure if I'll go back next year, but I definitely will be back at some point.
So the next time you go back, will you be gunning for the win?
I'd say so. I think anyone any of those top 10 women, like when we're on the start line, like we're all there to compete. Yeah. We're all there to give our best. I don't think anyone's there just to go out for a jog in the mountains and that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's good. Now, the women did really well this year, as in overall. Why do you think it is that the women were so strong this year?
I think women just race smarter, to be honest. Like there was a lot of the men who should have been like ahead of us, but I was reading an article by Jason Coop saying about the pandemic and how a lot of athletes have had a year removed from racing. So a few people could be just a bit race rusty. Yeah, true. But I also think that the women raced a lot smarter. There were some guys probably that maybe went out a bit hot and then blew up. But the female field didn't have as much attrition, I don't think, as the male field did.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So, and you were saying that you think the 100 miles is quite hard on your body. So how has your recovery been going?
It's been going really well. I've been in Costa Rica, pretty much not long after the race. Just completely I haven't done any running and just been doing some diving and some yoga. And I'll be here for 3 weeks, and then I head back to Europe for the end of the season. And so then I'll get back into running when I get into Europe.
And so do you do anything specific for recovery? Sorry, I'm just writing something down. Do you do anything specific for recovery? Like, I know you said yoga, but do you do, the compression boots, or do you eat anything specific or anything like that?
No, it's just like upping my protein pretty much after a big event like this. And then no, I don't use compression. I'll get massage. But for me, it's just like not just physical, it's also mental. So it's like completely switching off from running during this time and not feeling like I need to go for a jog or a run or anything. That's the way I approach it.
And how long do you have off running completely?
Well, I'm not like, this is going to be 3 weeks. Normally I wouldn't have this long, but I think just with the way I was feeling at the end of the race and just being my first 100 miler, I really want to respect that distance and not rush back into things. And when I get to Europe, I'll also get a blood test just to make sure everything's good to go and then get back into training. Yeah,
look, I think sometimes having a complete break is good, more mentally rather than physically. Yeah, and
It's
it
like,
renews
yeah,
your desire to run and race again anyway.
exactly. Like I think after 3 weeks, I'll be ready to get motivated and get back into it.
Yeah.
And I think resting after 100 miler is the best thing you can do for your body.
I think so. Now, you talked about the European race season. What races is that?
Currently signed up for CCC for
Oh,
UTMB.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Have you
we'll
done that
just see.
before?
Yeah, I did it in 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll see if I'm recovered or not. Otherwise, I might do Transvolcania, which
Oh, yeah.
is end of October, and then the World Trail and Mountain Running Champs are in Thailand in November. So it's kind of I'll decide once I get over to Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, spoiled for choice then. So you don't even need to get back to the hotel quarantine then.
No, not yet, but I do want to get back home in December, so I need to be on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's true. No, we touched on this earlier, but you ran and won Tarawera overall back in February. Can you share with us what that was like winning that overall?
Yeah, so I went into it got a lot of hype, to be honest, but it was good. Like overall, it was super positive, and it was good to see trail running, especially in New Zealand, getting a bit more spotlight. But I don't really compare myself to the men. It was more, I went in there to compete against the women, and also what mattered most to me was to be able to get Courtney DeWalder's course record. Because sometimes I think a woman's result shouldn't be justified by how many men she beat.
No. I totally agree. But yeah, it's still something.
But it was super cool. Like I hadn't done Tarawera since it was my first 100K actually. And it was just like our course came up against the tail end of the 50K runners.
Yeah.
And I think Tarawera is an awesome event. Like it gets a lot of people out on the trails. So it was great to see. I think they had 5,000 people. And I think the year before, because the borders were open, that had 7,000 people, which is massive. So yeah, it was super cool just to race at home as well. My parents, they don't come overseas, and so they were able to help crew and be on board.
That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Why do you think Tarawera is so popular?
I don't know. I feel like it got a lot of momentum at the beginning when it was on the Ultra Trail World Tour. And it does have a really good atmosphere. So I think that's just kind of, snowballed over the years, and it's got a lot of, I don't know, hype around it.
Yeah. I just know certainly here in Australia, it's really popular, and lots of Aussies get over there if they possibly can.
Yeah, probably similar to like UTA as well.
Yes. Yeah. Have you done the 100 at UTA?
No, I haven't. Just the 50. Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever do the 100 there?
Possibly. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I would like to. I definitely really enjoyed the Blue Mountains. So maybe one time in the future. You just got to be selective, I think, with these longer races. You can't do too many of them in a year.
How many 100Ks would you do in a year?
I wouldn't go over 3, even that, I think. Yeah.
But then you would also do some 50Ks and all that sort of stuff in that as well, wouldn't you?
Like this year I've done 150 and 100 and 100 miler, and I probably will do, I don't, to be honest, like I think for this year I've got maybe one more 100K in me or a 50, but not much more than that.
So Western States aside, would you do another 100 miler, or would you only do Western States again?
I definitely like to do another 100 mile. Like I would like to do UTMB, but it's a lot more time out there. So I think I'd probably need to do a few more shorter time wise 100 milers before I step up to that. And get better at hiking. Yes,
you definitely need to be good at hiking for that one.
Yeah.
Do you use poles at all in your racing when you're doing maintenance races?
Yeah, like when I raced CCC in 2015, I've used poles, and then there's been other races over the years where I've definitely pulled out poles.
Yeah. And when you are going into a race that's really maintenance like CCC, and do you train your hiking, or do you just incorporate that into some of your longer runs?
I just incorporate it more into my longer runs. Yeah, I don't do specific hiking sessions or anything like that. It's just getting time out in the mountains. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. So, and what do you have any tips for, people stepping up to their first 100-miler? Like, what sort of things can they think about with their training and racing mentality?
I think the main one is to not step up to the 100-mile distance too quickly. I noticed that a lot when I was living in Asia. I think there's a lot of hype around 100 miles, and so sometimes people want to speed up that process, especially if they're new to trail running. So go from a 50K to a 100-miler. And so I think it's doing like logical races. So doing like 50 and 80K, 100K. And then for me, like doing Western States, it was the right option because it's time-wise, it's super short compared to like something like UTMB. So seeking out races that kind of make that progression logical. And then like, I think the main thing with these longer ones as well as your nutrition is just making sure you have a dialed nutrition plan going into it, because you can do all the training. But then if your nutrition plan doesn't work out, then that can totally throw your race as well.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse than knowing that you're fit and ready, but it's your stomach that stopped you going.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So has that ever happened to you?
It did actually. I did Lavaredo in 2017 and I was throwing up in that race. That was the race that actually put me off wanting to do ultras.
Oh, wow.
So that it has happened to me before, and I think it does happen to quite a lot of ultra runners. Yeah. And
was that too many gels for you, or just?
Yeah, I was getting too many gels on, too much like carbohydrate too early on in the race. Yeah, and I was also running too hard at the beginning. Yeah.
So there you go. That's also a good reason to pace yourself as well, is to look after your stomach too.
Yeah.
And so after the European race season this year, what are your plans for running next year? Are you going to do Tarawera again?
I'm not sure. It's like I said, if I can get into New Zealand, I'm not sure if I'll stay in Europe. I would like to do a road marathon again. And I just feel that the road really helps with the trail season as well. So maybe I'll probably lean more towards doing the road at the beginning of the year, and maybe some trail races in New Zealand. We'll just see.
Can I just ask, going back actually, what happened in that road marathon that you pulled out at 32 Ks?
It just wasn't happening. It was one of those races, I think, with the road marathon as well, you have to have everything line up on the day. And I'd been sick the week before leading into it. And you're on the start line, you're just telling yourself that you're going to be fine. And it just wasn't happening. And I felt it was 5K loops. And even in the first 5K, I felt like I was working a lot harder than what I should have. And then I stayed on pace until halfway, and then the pace was just dropping. And then at 32K, I just decided it just wasn't happening. And so I wasn't there to jog it in. All my time goals had slipped. And so it made sense to stop there and then recover from that and focus on the trail season, then dig myself in a bigger hole. So I think it's it comes down to just wasn't happening that day.
Yeah. And sometimes it's better to just be sensible and not keep pushing it like yourself, dig a hole. And also with marathons, I mean, you've got a lot less room for recovery and,
Exactly. Like trail races, like 100 miles, you can go for a bad patch and you know you're going to come out of it.
That's right.
And a road marathon, if it's not happening on the day, it's just not happening. And like, I don't know, a DNF for me, it's just whatever you put on it. And it didn't mean anything, really.
I agree.
It's just like,
Now, when you're racing something like Western States or Tarawera, do you listen to music or anything like that?
Yeah, I do actually. I listen to music. It really helps me. Normally in ultras, I tell myself as a treat, I can't listen to it till after halfway. But I knew I was picking up my paces. So I listened to it before the 100K mark. And then I was picking up my 2 paces for the last 60K. And so they were talking to me. And so I wasn't listening to music then.
So what's on your playlist?
Oh my gosh, there's you can have anything and everything. We've got AC, DC, Mumford & Sons. What else have we got? So probably some poppy trash as well. Yeah, everything really.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And the poppy trash can be quite uplifting sometimes.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it can get you out of the hole. It seriously can.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And nothing wrong with a bit of AC, DC occasionally too.
No.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing with the listeners your experience at Western States. We were just, obviously over here in Australia, we adopt you when you're a Kiwi, basically, especially when you come second.
When you do well.
Yeah, that's right. Typical Aussies.
No.
But we were just rapt to see you do so well, so congratulations, and can't wait to see what you can do again next time at Western States.
Awesome. Thank you. And I had a lot of Aussies reach out to me, and thank you for everyone for the messages. It was awesome. And it really helped, I think, having the live this year. It was cool that so many people.
Yes, that was so good.
Yeah, could follow along.
Now, where can people, speaking of following, where can they find you and follow you to see what you're doing?
On Instagram, it's at Ruth Crofty, and then on Facebook, it's just Ruth Croft.
Yep. All righty. So I'll put those links in the show notes, and thank you once again.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.